listening to Look Up, I'm here. I am so happy that I'm getting a lot of hits. Subscribers are listening to me, and it's giving me this feeling like, what I've been through, my story, and my experiences and trials and tribulations does matter. It's interesting. It's relatable. It's something that people feel that, as you listen to me, as you vibing with me, you're supporting my voice. And I see the numbers, right? I see the promotions. I see my friends. I see people that know me, people who don't know me, sparking things up. And it's a grassroots moment, right? For me, I got to start from the bottom. And sadly to say, a lot of my trials and tribulations and my accomplishments and my achievements started from the bottom. And I'm humbled to say, you got to start from the bottom to get to the top. But you're never going to catch me back down there again. I'll pull you up. But, so this episode here is going to pick up. It's going to be a quick synapse just to get you guys going, just to get through season 1. I have a bunch of seasons, I have a bunch of episodes, I have relatable issues, things to talk about. But let's just stick to this, right? It's the experience. It comes from the continuation. It comes from the forbidden. It comes from, the transition. And why I title these things. Why do I title each episode this way? Because it was a pivotal moment in my life at that time when I was a young child, a young girl, a young woman, a child, having a child, raising a child, being a child. And, a lot of the reasons that, some points I'm sad, I'm coming down about it, or certain things, certain areas that I'm talking about, it may trigger me. And I'm sure that, when you are reflecting and you're listening to me or you vibing with me, certain things that I say or I'm explaining and I experience, it may trigger you. But this is just where the growth happens, right? The triggers are not always have to be something negative. They don't always have to be reflective to be looking at a negative light. It's something for us all to embrace. And that's what I'm doing now in my adult life, in my age. I'm passing this knowledge of this wisdom that I've acquired on my own, right? I taught myself, how to be this adult and how to handle this and how to roll around in it, get dirty and take from it. So, we're going to get to the experience, and the experience is, Sky, me, going through domestic violence, in every aspect of it. So as I finished school, as I crossed the stage, as I had the savior be there for me through thick and thin, I still loved this man. And I was conflicted because I didn't know what domestic violence was, right? And I know that now. And as I went to school and educated myself and obtained the proper tools of understanding what domestic violence, but I've experienced domestic violence verbally, physically, emotionally, financially, and just the abuse of it, the neglect of it. And all of that comes from the notion of a partner and that domestic, because of the domesticated aspect of it, but not realizing that I've experienced the neglect, the need of being nurtured, the need of being heard, the need of growing from my home. So to me, certain aspects of domestic violence, and I'm using air quotes, didn't really affect me so much because I numbed it of my past experiences. So in the experience, Sky post-pregnancy was going through it, and everything shifted, everything changed as soon as I had that baby. Things were not the same between this man, and I've been holding on for dear life, holding on, post-pregnancy. Poverty smacked me in my face a few times, and I didn't understand where these blows were coming from. All I needed to know is how I'm going to make sure that I got the Similac for the baby, and how I'm going to make sure that I get these Pampers for my child, how I'm going to hustle, how I'm going to get a job, who's going to help take care of the baby if I get a job. And back in the, late 90s, you needed a job. Like, now I got the high school diploma. What you about to do? Because, you're not getting no support from the father and the little chump change that he was hustling and getting, because the game shifted late 90s. And I don't understand the game, right? I was told to do certain things and I did them based on the trust that the person I was with, the forbidden, was going to make sure that I'm taken care of. So, at 18 years old with a baby, graduating high school, and that was like the first and only achievement that I've made, given the fact of everything that happened during the forbidden stages, during the fact that happened due to transition. He was my first boyfriend. He was my first love. It was my first at everything. It was my first from, even being a parent. It was my first living from home. So all of these first being a child, it just kind of like psychologically affected me. So in a way, I kind of abused myself because I had to figure out and know the pressure that I was placing on myself at that age without even having the proper answers. At being at a little girl to this age, I was fucking lost. So I held them on this expectation, and I'm saying the forbidden as what my dad would have done with me. Because at that time, I could only reflect that my dad was the bread keeper, the breadwinner, the maintainer. My mom stayed home and took care of the kids. And the forbidden didn't do that. So that was a culture shock for me too. All appointments, the forbidden wasn't there. But I remember my dad being at my doctor's appointments and my school events and stuff like that. So that was like a shock to me. Like, does this guy want to be a father? Does this guy know how to be a father? I'm asking these questions now, but then I didn't know because I was holding on to dear life because I needed him. I depended on him. I was codependent on this man. Every man, anything that he's done, regardless of what the pain it was inflicted and what I had to hold on to, I needed this man. I have this child by this man, and I can't let this little girl grow up without her dad. And so all means necessary, I gotta take it as a trooper. And I just took it day by day by him. So, I get my first job. I find it as a waitress back in the city in Manhattan. And, my savior would babysit. The neighbors would babysit. And I'm in the hood now, I'm bouncing from house to house. Her father, he would look out here and there, depends on, his routines. But it was just like all man for his own, The financial abuse started kicking in because his money was low. Now my money's coming up, and my money was minimum money. I'm getting food stamps. I'm getting a couple of dollars from public assistance, a little waitress job that I was getting. It was always give me, but I would never have anything. So I'm not used to, at that point, of being dated or courted or, given things or done things. So my first experience with a man, I've never, what I see on TV or what I hear from friends and coworkers and classmates and people just around in my environment at that time, it didn't make sense to me because I wasn't exposed to it. So like, I'm looking at the baby and I'm like, I don't know what to do with you. She's looking at me like, I don't know what to do with you either. I'm looking at the dad. I'm like, yo, what are we supposed to do with this? And he's like, I don't know. You got to do what you got to do with. And it's just like, I don't know. And, to this day, I hate that word, I don't know. Because at that time, I had to figure out what to do and how to handle it. So it kind of like trickled into my personal life and my adulthood, where it's like, what you mean you don't know? Shit, get the fuck out of here. What do you mean you don't know? You better figure it out. You better handle your business. You gotta have a plan C for the plan B and the B for the A. And that's how I was psychologically connected. That's how I was psychologically, emotionally, and verbally, financially, re-abusing myself, where I take that from that domestic violence, like that, the core of it. And I know you might think that I'm crazy saying this to you, but it was kind of like, I was kind of like taking those abuses with me and adding it as ammunition for me to figure out what I had to do. So when I was being verbally abused, I would just have to ignore it. When I was being physically abused, I just had to put the sunglasses on and keep it moving. Put Vicks or ice pack on it and keep it moving. When I was emotionally beaten down, I had to just suck it up and say, you know what, this is temporary. I'm not gonna go through this anymore. When my money was taken from me and I was financially strapped, I had to figure out like how many hours I'm gonna add more to work, or how I'm gonna, hide my money, or how I'm gonna manipulate this and how I'm gonna stretch it. So it was like every time I was catched on by something, either the forbidden, inflicted by the forbidden, or if it wasn't inflicted by the forbidden, it was like I was taking what he was doing to me back on me for me to figure out a way or solution so that I could counteract that. So the experience was psychologically crazy. As I'm reiterating this to you, as I'm talking into this podcast, I'm getting emotional right now. So I'm just like, yo, how the fuck did I get through this? Because I probably today would not have to go through that. I know for a fact I would not even allow that. I would smell it a mile away and be like, get that shit out of my face. Get it out of here. Because I can't fathom the fact that I, at that age, went through that. And so when I say resilient, it's psychological resilience, it's emotional, it's financial, it's verbal, it's physical. You know, all of that come to play. And so I got this baby now, you know, my friends from high school are helping me, you know, and to this day, we breaking breakthroughs with each other, benchmarks with each other. And it's like, you know, they were there, they were helping me, holding the baby down. I'm running from school, you know, I'm sorry, not school. I'm running from this waitress job. I'm running to the house, you know, and then I'm getting these psychological downtimes where I don't have my mom. I don't have my dad. I don't have my siblings. I started missing my mother. I started missing my sisters. I started missing my dad. I started saying to myself, like, what the fuck did I just do to myself? How do I get the fuck out of this situation? And, you know, in this experience, it was just like, how the fuck can I fix it? Damn, what the fuck is going on? Let me figure out a resolution. So, you know, a lot I'm humble to, and I gotta give props to, is that when the Savior was there for me, for the money that she was putting in my pocket when I was short, the food, the babysitting, the experience was rough because I loved the man so much that he couldn't be my savior. His mother was my savior. And at that age, 18, 19, how the fuck can you determine who the savior is? And I had to technically just fall on the fact that I gotta trust somebody with my life. And so the savior, you know, she looked out for me. She took care of me hard and supported me. Got my first real gig then in the hospital through the high school, because I graduated and I'm like, I need a job. And she's like, I bet, you know what, let me see. She calls a couple of contacts. I get this job at the hospital. Now I'm meeting adults. I'm meeting 20-year-olds. I'm meeting adults that already have kids and in relationships, and some of them are married. And I'm turning around, I'm coming back to the house, and I'm looking at everybody, and I'm like, yo, this is not what's for me. So now the environment that I'm in is teaching me, is giving me certain experiences. I'm hanging out with nurses and doctors. I'm working in a hospital. I'm learning customer service. I'm learning how to deal with patients and how to speak to people, and my vocabulary shifts, my thought process shifts. And, you know, people are asking me, are you gonna go to college? And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Do you know what the fuck I gotta go home to? Do you understand? Like, you lucky I'm here every day, Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. I gotta rush home and get my baby. I gotta deal with this knucklehead of the forbidden. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I don't even know if I'm gonna be eating tomorrow. And in the experience, when I say to you, like, it was dramatic for me. Every day I was on fight or flight. Every day I was on survival mode. I didn't know anything about myself. I didn't know nothing about makeup. I didn't know nothing about getting fly. I didn't know nothing about nothing. I just did not want to wake up hungry, thrown down the street, thrown down the stairs, living in a homeless shelter. All I kept thinking about is, I got this baby on my shoulder, and how the hell I'm gonna make sure that everything's okay. And then during the course of this relationship with the forbidden, you know, the cheating. I didn't know what the fuck cheating was. You know, the lies. I didn't know what the fuck that shit was. I was so numb and so confused and so suppressed because I didn't get a moment to breathe, a moment to understand, or a moment to learn that couldn't blame anybody, and I constantly beat myself about it, because if I had not came back from Yemen, would this had happened to me? If I had not given up my family, you know, and not rebel and fight so hard to be heard, or fight so hard to basically get my answers and my questions asked at a young age, would I be in this situation? And those thoughts were running to my mind, like, damn, man, I wish I would listen to my dad. I wish I just got married. I wish I stayed in Yemen. Like, I really thought at that point my life was over, and I played myself, and I'm the dummy here. But every time I would meet up with my homegirls, and, you know, they were there with me. They were like, don't worry about it. This is temporary. And so today, when I'm sitting up in the podium and I'm talking to, you know, women that are dealing with certain things, and I'm standing there high and strong with my head up high, I'm actually telling you, like, y'all, this is temporary. This ain't gonna happen. It's not gonna stay long. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's gonna get better. And so in the experience, which picks up, you know, and it kind of like bringing this connection, I was challenged. I was challenged to my core. I was challenged. I was upset. I was hurt. I had emotions on emotions, and it was no outlet. But the only lifeline I had was the forbidden savior. So it was these two people that I needed and I depended on. And so my experience was, after I finished high school with a little girl, how the fuck I'm gonna survive? Given the fact that I was dealing with all these trials that I wasn't prepared for. You know, it was no guidance in that area. You know, even the savior was just like, shit, what the fuck? You know? And all I knew how to was be on survivor mode, and so therefore I was numb. And, you know, can I say that I'm proud about that now? Shit, I wouldn't be here. Was I, you know, in a situation where I thought that I would never be at this place? Yeah, back then I didn't think that I was gonna survive it, or I was gonna get through it, or it was gonna be a breakthrough for me, you know. And what I'm just saying, like, to my audience, you know, episode 7 was an experience, and the experiences are listed, you know, and it was a point in my life where I had to be an adult without the proper tools on being an adult and being a mother. And it was the craziest thing ever, because it took me about a good 9 to 10 months of my child looking at her every day and not emotionally embracing her, because I didn't know what to do with her. Because everything that was attached to her had conflict and challenges. So I don't know, at that point, maybe I was suffering from postpartum, but I just had to deal with what I had to deal with and not let it out on her. And just watching my child not have toys, and the only thing that she was able to be given from was from the savior, it bothered me, because I was like, I'm bringing this child to this world and I can't even, you know, take care of this baby. And at that point I was like, the baby. And, you know, in the experience, I'm talking about the experience, if you could just sit back and think about it, at 18, 19 years old, in the late 90s, having a child and experiencing all of these trials and tribulations, I don't think there's a manual out there or a cheat sheet to say how would you survive it. Because today, there's resources and guidance counselors and social work programs and all of these great opportunities. And I just wish then was, you know, now was then and then was now, you know. But Sky had to get through it. I got through it. And I succeeded. And was the person who took on the experience. I faced it. I didn't run from it. I wasn't afraid of it. And I challenged it, and I took the blows for it in every aspect that you can think of. And I rose up and I succeeded. And so, like, as I'm talking about it in my podcast, and I know you guys probably like, yo, she's not as fluid in this one, but the experience really, really, really triggered me. And that's where I wanted, like, you know, to let my audience know, like, this is some true shit. This true story, real life, raw. It's something that I can, like, get more in detail as I, you know, I'm deciding to write my book, you know, and it's going to be more in detail. And this audio podcast is just an outlet to say, you know, we're in a time right now in 2020 where, you know, all lives matter, Black lives matter, you know, women lives matter, men lives matter, children lives matter, you know, poor people lives matter, rich people lives matter. Like, we all matter. And my voice matters. You know, where I stand matters, and how I think matters, and what I feel matters. And, you know, I'm going to speak up, and I'm going to use this platform to be positive and to reach out to the unheard. So I'm going to sign out on this. This is episode 7. It's called The Experience. I just want to just make sure that, you know, we don't get our little, ADD moment where we kind of like sign off, being that this podcast is a little longer. But I just want to say thank you for listening. This is Look Up. I'm here. I'm your host, Sky. Thank you so much for listening. And episode 8 is going to be a little bit more, to the point of what happened during, raising a child and how I dealt with it. Peace out.